Okay, so today I'm going to be reacting to Season 1, Episode 2 of Full House, and of course this is my first time ever watching the series, even though it's like a super well-known one. I just don't really watch TV a lot, especially not stuff that's maybe that old, and especially not sitcoms. The first episode was solid, but this is part of my overall, try not to laugh challenge, or I'm watching until I laugh. So if at any point I laugh, I just stop watching the series, not just the episode. So whatever point it happens, I'm sure it will happen too at some point, but I'm known as sort of being desensitized or whatever. Even if I find it enjoyable or amusing, it doesn't mean that I'll laugh, right? Like Seinfeld, I've seen the whole thing and I like it, but how many times did I really genuinely, fully, uncontrollably laugh? And the answer is not very many. Now today is one of those especially scuffed recording sessions because I always do these while I'm driving or sometimes while I'm eating, stopped in my car and I'm eating. That's just kind of the whatever. I do it whenever I have time, so either when I'm driving or when I'm eating food on the way or something. And so here I'm driving, but it's also raining, so that'll kind of throw off the audio a bit more. It's not just competing with the background sound of the car, but also the sound of the rain itself, so that can be a little bit annoying. But yeah, the three key takeaways from the first episode was it was solid. It wasn't anything crazy or exceptional, but it wasn't bad, so I'll give it a solid B grade. And of course I give out A's and F's very sparingly. So it was kind of okay. They're introducing the family. They're introducing, it's like three men and a baby, but instead it's like three men and a whole bunch of babies, like a whole bunch of kids, right? The two girls and then the little baby as well. So again, that whole dynamic is fine. There's the comedian character, the guy who's like a comic. His delivery was pretty good. You got the main character who lost his wife. And then you got the other guy. I'm not going to know their names necessarily off the bat, but that's fine. You got the other character who I forgot what they even do, but they're like this hip kind of cool guy, almost is the vibe they're trying to give off. So all these people will be living together, trying to take care of the kids, trying to deal with the loss of the wife and the mother, of course, and also the other, the grandmother left in the first episode. It's been 3 months, we finally moved on, so it started off on more of a solemn note than what I thought, but generally it was a solid episode, nothing exceptional, nothing terrible, right, just fine. One thing I was expecting is the humor to be more antiquated, since it's kind of an older show, where they wouldn't take as many risks, or it'd be a little bit out of touch and so forth, but actually it wasn't too bad. The humor was generally some of the same modern sitcom tropes that you would expect, for better or for worse. Trying to deal with the guy makes a joke at the beginning about oh, I was gonna eat with this girl, and we're not talking about eating her out, but you know what I mean, he was using innuendo. Oh, I was just planning to have dinner with her, but she wasn't hungry, she was full, and because you're trying to mask it in front of the kids. So this is some sort of vibe you would see in 2 2.5 Men, where oh, you're trying to explain something to Jake, but actually you're trying to explain Charlie's degenerate behavior to Jake, his fiendish sexual behavior, but try to dress it up. There's a classic scene the booty call, where Alan's trying to explain that, and he comes up with such an unbelievable, elaborate, amazing explanation, right? Oh, they were using it for, they would take a shower, the cowboys back in the day, and they would yell booty so that nobody would watch them be naked as they strip down, because they would get so dirty in their work, something like that. So that's the kind of very creative innuendo based around sexual humor, which I'm surprised. Again, I thought they'd play it much safer here. This is from the 1980s, so, but no, it was pretty much modern humor stuff. The one point that I didn't really like as far as the premise is, it's very based on physical comedy. We see the girl hanging on the drapes, the curtain, and kind of going across, so it's trying to present funny imagery, just kind of physical comedy, people probably tripping, falling, stuff like that, just the kids in general. It starts off with the baby's face to try to, some people find that cute and funny in and of itself, just seeing a baby. So to what extent are they going to exploit that? Exploiting child actors, the original, Dan Schneider effect, or, exploiting a baby even. Sometimes I was questioning whether it's even a real baby, how are they going to do this over the course of the whole show, just have somebody's baby there? There's all kind of questions of, how fair is that, how ethical is that, how much mistreatment, there'll be some sort of documentary about it. Again, I don't really care, but just, I also don't like that being exploited for laughs. we're using a baby, we're using a bunch of other, young girls, young kids, we're using a bunch of this lowbrow sort of physical comedy of, oh, look at her hanging on the drapes, look at her running in circles, look at her falling down and tripping. This is kind of the lowest common denominator aspect that we're going for in the absence of good writing. Some of the delivery is pretty good. The one girl, I don't know, again, all the names yet, but one of the girls had pretty good delivery. She was kind of snarky, like, nobody asked me. Why didn't you tell me there was this, that was kind of a good scene in the kitchen. Why didn't you tell me you had this thing ready, whatever it was, I forgot. But nobody asked me, so that's why. Like, there's a bunch of diapers here and we're trying to change in some elaborate way or whatever. And what are some of the other conditions? So basically, if I get bored, that could also be a failure state. If the main character, I guess, would be the dad. If he gets to a -10 on the character point system, that would count as a failure state, meaning I would stop watching. And also, if it gets 3 F grades within the whole show, not just a season, that would also count as a failure state. These things are very unlikely to happen, but I always just like to do formats of some interest to me as I'm doing this, because it's just kind of fun, makes it more interesting. But also, if the main character gets saved by plot armor, so if he's about to die, or doing his duties, like if he's doing his job and he would have gotten fired, but he gets saved by plot armor 3 times, right, somehow, that would also count. But that was more relevant to, like, The Sopranos that I was watching. It lasted a mere 13 episodes before he got 3 strikes on the plot armor count. And that's only supposed to be by season, not even by the show. The F, if I get 3 F-rated episodes, that's supposed to be for the whole show overall, because, again, the standard is high, but it's not like, getting an F is pretty hard. Sopranos did get 1 F in episode 9 of the first season, but again, it probably wouldn't have gotten another one for a long time. So that one lost on the plot armor condition that he abused and got carried by plot armor 3 times in 13 episodes, which is bullshit. But no, let's, what are the key takeaways? The first episode was a B. It was solid, not great, not terrible, just fine. It was, a lot of physical comedy, arguably exploiting the kids angle. That part I kind of don't like. Like, oh, look at this cute kid, isn't that so funny? So again, it's not the greatest thing, but I'm not going to hold it against it too much yet. But in the long term, for that to be the first episode that they're already relying on that. Look at this cute baby, look at these cute kids, look at this, whatever, family drama that we have going on. The one element that kind of impressed me and surprised me was the tonal shift. Like, the ending scene was kind of sweet with the family, like, we're all coming together, we have to stick together kind of thing, as the other girl is trying to live alone in the garage. And so, if you don't come back in the house, we'll have to come all move out here, right? So they're all kind of coping in different ways with the loss of the mother, and so that dramatic element is good. I almost feel like every episode will have, like, one reference. He'll be looking at a picture of her, and that's how it'll end. Like, some girls asking him out at the bar as they're hanging out with their buddies, and he's, like, still wearing his wedding ring, and he says, "I'm married." Right, even though we know it's just he's hanging on too tight to the memory of his wife. All these kind of obligatory scenes you can have, but they could be good payoff sort of drama. But that's a good contrast. I didn't expect it to be like that. I thought it would just be, again, like 3 men and a baby, and it's like, whatever, just the comedy associated with that element to do with, oh, look at these crazy zany kids, and look at these unfit sort of figures taking care of them. But I didn't know it would focus so much on, or I didn't know that element would be so dark and dramatic and serious that, the mother actually passed away, and we have to deal with this in such a way that, I don't know, it's a good dramatic layer to it that would probably have taken it up from a C to a B. If you take away that part and, like, oh, the mother just, we're just divorced. The mother divorced me, like, in 2.5 Men or something, right? Judith breaks up with Alan, that's how it starts. I might have a lot of comparisons to that, just because it's one of the only sitcoms I've seen. Maybe not every episode, but also, the premise is kind of similar, I guess, in some ways. So one of these guys is going to be a degenerate womanizer, like the guy who's not the comic, and then the comic's just going to be always putting on these Robin Williams, Miss Doubtfire type acts and doing voice acting, and that's a good excuse to at least break into these sort of things. Right, like that kind of, humor that doesn't have to pretend to be organic. It's just like, oh, he's a comic, so of course he's doing one of his routines. So it's kind of a writing shortcut in a way, just to kind of do these little gimmicks and gaffes, but that otherwise might not make sense. You know what those characters always remind me of? It's from one of my favorite movies ever, but it was much more organic. It's from Sleuth starring Laurence Olivier and Michael Caine. And Laurence Olivier's character, Andrew White, would always go in these little asides where he's like, I don't know how to explain it. Like he's quoting something from one of his books. He's a writer, and he loves detective fiction and mystery and, sort of games playing and novelties like that. So he would keep going into these little asides, but that was so organic and so natural, and it wasn't even always trying to be funny. He's just kind of like, he's always has a quote or a reference or a little innuendo or something to say. So that's a fascinating character type. Obviously, in this case, not played at as high of an intellectual level, but that's just what I always think of when I see these characters sort of breaking into their own little references and routines in their everyday, regular sort of life and stuff. So yeah, that's all fine. Again, the serious, dramatic element kind of impressed me, to say the least. And I'll do like little longer intros with these kind of things because this episode's not going to be that long, right? These are only like half-hour episodes, so I was almost waiting for the rain to subside. But no, my drive takes me about an hour, and so I have enough time for an intro, outro, and then some. Whereas like with The Sopranos, I could barely fit it in, even without that, because some of those episodes are like 40, 50 minutes just by themselves. So this kind of works better. And then the other show I'm watching on my other slot right now, like tomorrow, I'll watch is Serial Experiments Lain, which is an anime, and that's kind of good for the same purpose too, where it's like 24 minutes. I kind of like to watch something more serious in the morning. Like even Sopranos is partly a comedy, but something a little more heavy in the morning when I'm driving in. And then when I'm driving home like now, I prefer to watch something a little more, comic relief or even horror, but not something I have to get invested dramatically in quite as much. So we'll start here in a second here. But no, those were the core 3 points, right? You give it a B grade. You got the family drama, physical humor, exploiting the kids a little bit, maybe too much. And then just my surprise at the dramatic element that it had such a heavy sort of weight to it. It almost makes me think of How I Met Your Mother in a way, like, the mother passes away, whatever, towards the end of the show, or the beginning, I guess you could say, and then Barney comes over to stay and to take care of the kids. Like, you could have, that's not actually what happens, but you could have portrayed it in that angle, like Barney and Ted, Barney comes in to help him with the kids, and so Barney and Ted are raising the kids that he's telling the story to, right, rather than, him hooking up with Robin or just dealing with it himself. Everybody hates that ending so much, but like, we knew that was going to be the ending because, whatever, like, they had filmed it earlier in the series and they had decided on it. I think the real culprit isn't so much the ending, it's how much they dragged the show out, right, that it made it make a lot less sense. So it's like, it's one of those lessons, and just if they had ended the series in like season 3 and that was the ending, maybe it would have made sense or something, earlier, but they keep dragging it out, and keep injecting all these other plot lines and going round and round in circles with the relationship that now is kind of less convincing. So sometimes the greed, I say that with The Mentalist too, one of my favorite shows that I always bring up in everything I watch, just because it's such a, I don't know, it's the one show that I really just love and always swear by, even though the ending is flawed and the way they end up beating the villain, Red John, is kind of shitty, and I've criticized that a lot too. That scene lives rent-free in my head, it's just so bad. But the point is that it's a case where I was kind of drawing an analogy here that at the end of every episode, like, the main character's wife and daughter were killed by the serial killer main villain, Red John, at the beginning of that show, right? And so basically, I was drawing the parallel that even if the show, every episode is about the main, a procedural detective story, we're going to the crime scene trying to solve this case, right? Just some random case every episode, just like how this show will have like a random plot line every episode, like, oh, today we got to figure out whatever, we're having trouble at school and somebody's bullying us, so we got to solve that problem, right? There'll be all these little plot lines. What it'll keep coming back to as a dramatic arc is at the end of every episode of The Mentalist, or usually, there would be like a little payoff, like, him thinking about his wife, him sitting at a bar with his wedding ring on, and some girl approaches him, in the aftermath of solving the case that has nothing to do with the overarching storyline, like Red John, him trying to catch him, and, it's just some random case, because every episode's going to have its own storyline like that. But he's sitting at the bar kind of celebrating or just relaxing after the case is over, and then some girl asks him out, you're kind of cute, why don't you come sit with us? And he's like, sorry, I'm married, and shows the wedding ring. But we know that he's just lamenting over his dead wife and isn't ready to move on. So those kind of moments are very good and powerful to create sort of an overarching dramatic narrative to a story like this. So every episode might be comedy here, just like it's procedural there. And then at the end, he'll kind of, there'll be some reflection. Like the first episode did that perfectly, where the family kind of comes together over that was like a serious, tender, dramatic, actual good moment at the end of the episode, despite it being played for laughs for the most part, the rest of it. So that's a good balance, both in terms of tone, that it goes from comedy to drama. There'll be those little moments peppered in, but also it's good as sort of an overarching narrative in a show that otherwise might not have context, like, oh, what goofy antics are the kids up to today? And that's all there'll be to it. But that gives you a little more structure. Like, the overarching point is this overall character development and the sort of loss and how they're dealing with that. And, it gives you sort of a greater structure and plot line to it. So I was not expecting that to be there at all. What I honestly thought it would be the same thing, like basically what it was, but just without that. The wife didn't die, she just left him, or whatever. Like, even I thought the wife might be there. It's not a full house without a wife. Like, you have the husband, the wife, the kids, and they're just kind of, that's it. It's this typical sitcom. They're just having regular family drama. So in a way, you could say, I won't even say that part is exploitative. We'll see how they treat it. But I will make fun a little bit of, they're exploiting the child actors, and they're exploiting the, the baby and stuff to whatever extent. Maybe it's a real baby, maybe it's not. We'll have to figure that out too. And keep making guesses. Fake baby count 1 million. So we're going to start here in 3, 2, or wait a second. Episode 2 is like Our First Night is the name of it. Sometimes I'll try not to look at the episode names, just because it might spoil something in other kind of series, but in this case, it doesn't matter, and we'll include the intro. So it's like minus 2439, we're watching on HBO Max, starting Season 1, Episode 2, in 3, 2, 1, with the baby's face. So if I do laugh, I will take sort of a little umbrage to say, I'm going to try not to laugh. I even laugh more in my intro, but it has to be a real, genuine thing. It can't just be like me smirking or, oh, that was kind of cute. Some of the delivery almost cracked me up a little bit. Just the kids are pretty good actors and stuff. Bob Saget. See, look, Candace Cameron is doing the pose where you lay on your stomach and have your feet up in the air. I just heard about it from a friend, but that's considered, that's like, potentially sensual or erotic, so you can't do that with a little girl. So therefore, we need to make a Dan Schneider Quiet on Set documentary about this, because, like, how dare you sexualize a little girl by making her put her feet up in the air like that, right? Some weird guy somewhere gets off on that. Like, I'm just making fun of how that's how much they were reaching in Quiet on Set. Like, it's just a girl sitting on her bed, but no, you gotta, everything can be bad if you attach that sort of intent to it. So, or you know what there was actually? There was nudity of the baby in the first episode. So you're cleaning a baby's diaper and showing them naked, in the first episode to get laughs. Like, that's kind of a desperate little bad indication. If you have to do that already, a baby's butt has to be the butt of the humor already. Oh, here we go. And just as I'm talking about that, that's how this episode starts too. But this dynamic could be funny. Garbage day. I'm gonna laugh at some joke that I make or some meme that I'm doing. That doesn't count. these characters' dynamic is pretty good, and their delivery. So he's Joseph, the comic. I like Bob Mitchell as the baby. Little voice acting. I like Bob Saget's whole disposition. He has like a good attitude, and he has, I don't know, his vibe is good. Like, for somebody who lost his wife. I wonder how much he's going to potentially get in a relationship, though. Like, is he going to start dating and Bob Saget's character? Not. I'm sure this other guy in the red shirt is going to be the promiscuous type. The comic, I'm not so sure. Oh, we had this. Yes, he does. No, he doesn't. Back and forth. And then she tries to get her way. This guy's trying too hard to be funny, basically, is his problem. This guy must be a real comic or imitator or something. No actor can just normally do stuff like what he's doing. The way he's a bit of a nerdy type for bringing that up. Wolves have a big lung capacity. Sweden was progressive even back then, eh? So the way they introduce these two characters But then he'll quiz you on it in the morning if you've read it. Basically, the comic was Danny and Joey, is it? I can't catch their names. He's a San Francisco 49ers fan, I guess, with Joe Montana playing. Typical bandwagon degenerate. Or he's like a... Oh, he makes music, okay. So Joey, Danny, and... Right, again, he's not a bandwagon fan, he's a... sports writer. I was making a comparison to Ray Romano. Everybody loves Raymond. Yeah, like it's easy to be a fan of the 49ers when they got Jerry Rice and Joe Montana. Easy to write about them too. Nobody gives a shit if they bozo the clown, like from Seinfeld. He's such an optimistic guy, Bob Saget. I do find that kind of nice and infectious. Like, he's always just got some way to spin everything positively. But you could practice your music at home too, and they can't complain about the sound. If I would have left the other guy with them. Like having a substitute teacher, you gotta bully them. So the dynamic point is that the comic is better with kids and likes kids more. Right, that's how they introduced them at the beginning. And this guy was standoffish and doesn't like kids. Right, so that's a bad decision right there to leave the wrong guy who doesn't like kids. The other guy likes them because he's a clown and a comic. I like the snarkiness of this older kid though. Yeah, that's actually what I was suggesting. Practice your music here. But I'm assuming they're living for free, rent-free, so that's why they put up with this. But it's not free, it's in lieu of payment for your babysitting duties. Flattery will get you everywhere. That you have to pay for. original Uber driver over here, or whatever, Uber Eats, DoorDash, whatever the fuck it is. The lowest life forms who get food delivered to them. Too lazy to hunt or get it yourself, but also too lazy to even go to the grocery store and fucking buy it. But I guess you can be excused if you're just a little kid. Also, like 2.5 Men using your jingles for humor. Like Oshikuru, Demon Samurai, or some shit that they keep using. They like reference that in the Big Bang Theory thing, I think, too. See, also the physical comedy, like, isn't this so funny that they look so weird dancing around, and is the dad going to be upset about this? I mean, they're all having fun. Here's the obligatory, little sound, whatever, those transition songs. Oh, that was a good one, wordplay. Yeah, let's see you get mad. Just having a little fun listening to some music. Yeah, he has that Seinfeld vibe, like his voice raises to a comedic pitch, but he doesn't feel like he's ever mad. He's too positive of a guy. He's very verbose at times. Don't need to be like that to be a sports writer. But this is a good technique. It won't show her until certain scenes, or it won't show her with them on the screen. So it's like it's stock footage of the baby in some other context because you can't see it from this angle. So that's how they do it, right? Because it's too hard to always have the baby there and work with it. So it's in some other external way. So oh, he's a little flirtatious too, that means. He certainly wasn't enthusiastic about it. Just kick him out then. Couple good lines though. It's not bad. The Grand Canyon joke was decent. That one was decent. The perfect crime, pretend like you're asleep. The only thing he lied about was the pizza that he didn't order, but he did wake them up and stuff. A lot of word repetition comedy. Police? You didn't bring the band in there. He's using a little psychological manipulation. Where did she take that out of? Like a fucking drawer of wood? Yeah, I figured out their little strategy though. Never show the baby at the same time as anything else, or now it could be like a toy baby. I don't know how they did it, but he decked out his room pretty well. That doesn't make him feel better. Oh, that's a sweet gesture. So it always ends with like a tender moment of some kind. Michelle is the middle-aged girl. It's very hard for me to learn the names. You're something of a lead yourself. a big old softie. Danny. A full house, am I right? I love the part where they're playing a game of poker and they say, that's a full house. Or they'll always end an episode with a dance of some kind. Like how they were dancing in a circle at the, or what were they? I can't remember actually. Oh yeah, not a bad episode necessarily, but it's just like, I don't know. Probably like a C, it was okay. A couple good sort of potentially funny lines there. Again, just because I don't find it funny or just because I don't laugh doesn't mean that it's bad, right? But it's solid. I like, again, his vibe is pretty good, and he got mad, but it was sort of justified. It's sort of hard for me to figure out how to allocate character points here because, you know, the whole concept, let me explain that. The whole concept behind character points when I'm watching something is I'm always grading characters, not on a moral level, like, oh, I like what they did, or, you know, they did something good, so it's a plus. They did something bad, like morally, like, oh, it's an evil character. No, it's like they did whatever they're trying to do, right? They could be a villain. So if they're doing, you know, like being good at being bad, or being bad at being good, whatever, like, so Tony Soprano, for example, I wasn't judging him in that series. I was kind of shitting on him. He was at like a -4 for a while, right? So he was getting a lot of negative character points. So obviously, like, you start at 0. If you do something really impressive by your standard and criteria, you get a +1. Then if you do something bad, you'll get a -1, so you'll end up with 0 again, or whatever. You can go in the minus, you can go as high as you want. So the point is that you can be a criminal or a bad character, evil, but if you do something impressive, like, oh wow, you juked the cops by faking them out with this, you know, cool little gambit or trick, that's still a +1. So I'm not judging it on a moral level, I'm judging it based on their criteria. But it's kind of hard to do here. Like, who would have deserved a character point up or down? The kids aren't really doing anything notable, right? Unless they do, you know, they maybe get one for, you know, oh, they're trying to apologize and take the blame, but not really. You know, the musician guy was a bit of a clown, but it doesn't mean that that's really a -1 either. It's just kind of a neutral thing. That was almost a +1, like how he scoped out, you know, oh, it's like the substitute teacher effect. You're trying to, you know, because it's a babysitter, let's try to take advantage the same way that you would do, like, with a substitute teacher. There's also a lot of talking back to back. Like, they're not using the laugh track much as I hate laugh tracks. It's kind of good that they're not using it that much. But it's like, you know, it's just a case where you're not able to talk as much. So I was talking over certain things, but whatever, it doesn't matter because, like, I'm still listening. The one thing I just can't catch is their names. Danny is the one guy, Joey is the one guy. It's too confusing to do it like this because I don't know, I'm just not good with names in this context. But no, I didn't really laugh. Maybe towards the beginning I almost did at something, but it doesn't count if it's something that I myself am saying. Like, I'll make a joke myself and laugh at my own joke or whatever. But no, the comics delivery is pretty good. You know, the whole family dynamic is okay, so my prediction was correct that they'll end every episode by referencing the mother or, you know, doing some drama, sappy, emotional type stuff. So they had a nice little coming together, and you can cover up my bunny. That was kind of a nice payoff to that from earlier in the episode. So some of these dramatic dynamics are decent. Like, they're not forgetting to, you know, just because it's a comedy doesn't mean you can't have some element of that, which is pretty good. Right, the way they're handling that is decent, but they're saving it sort of all for the end. The first half of the episode will all be just like regular stuff. But he did take my advice in saying, oh, you know, if you're so crazy about music, then just go do it. You know what I mean? Like, just do it in the house while you wait. But I thought that would mean just him playing it by himself, you know, sort of practicing it. I didn't think he'd bring the whole fucking band over. But no, generally the humor isn't as antiquated and old school as I thought. Like, it's still a lot of stuff you would expect in modern comedy. Just these shows depend so much on the character dynamic. So, like, you know, you have like an archetype and the characters kind of write themselves, right? What crazy scenario will we put these guys in this time? and you already know kind of what they're gonna do, right? This guy's gonna be standoffish, the musician, and the comic's gonna be a little bit into it, and he's even gonna enjoy it. And Bob Saget's gonna be a little bit like verbose and eloquent, like he comes up with those kind of almost nerd character type lines, like, because wolves have great lung capacity, like he has all this encyclopedic knowledge of a lot of stuff, and he's not afraid to use it, so he'll state a very matter of fact, something that could be true, but that's like very trivial, and that's a form of comedy obviously in itself. So yeah, pretty much the only thing I'm struggling with is the character names. I'll give this one a C. Like, it wasn't anything particularly terrible, but just a typical scenario. He goes to work. I forget what the comic was doing that he didn't want to stay. I mean, he just didn't want to stay, period, even though he does like kids more and things like that. Yeah, we'll just have to learn the characters' names. I'm sometimes afraid to look it up even on Google because you should be able to figure it out inherently from the series itself. I wish the subtitles would say it, though. I have subtitles on, and I'm kind of glancing over, but it won't say the characters' actual names. So there's Joey, there's Danny. So I think Danny's the musician, Joey's the comic, Michelle is the little baby, I think, but and then the two girls and the dad, I guess I'm still a little bit unsure about. Pam was the wife. Right, like that, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, another solid episode, not terrible. Just give it a solid C. Like it basically was just a one-trick sort of thing, though. He's got to babysit them, and then so Joey's left to do it, and then that's it, right? Like, so they have to, he tries to kind of be a little tough at the beginning. You can't eat ice cream, but they do it anyway. They take advantage. And then it's a case where you're able to also consider the fact of just bringing the musicians over, doing that, so doing all kind of things he's not supposed to do. And so the whole thing is, like, I don't feel bad for them, though, necessarily, because it's like this arrangement that they're in. So you've chosen to do this. If you don't want to do it, then just go rent your own place and fuck it, right? But no, you want to live here for free, I'm assuming, right? It should be for free because, again, it's like the expectation that you're helping take care of the kids. You shouldn't really have to pay rent. So he's letting you live there for free, both Joey and... So you're doing him a favor by helping him with the kids, but then he's also doing you a favor by letting you live for free in his house, in his really big house at that, right? They might have overdone it a little bit, like even with the 2 girls, 3 girls, like talk about a full house. It's such a big house, it doesn't seem like it's full at all. Even with these other 2 clowns, even with, with the baby coming in. Yeah, it would be a full house, except your wife is dead. It's missing the wife, so it's not full at all, actually. These 2 clowns don't make up for her presence, together. But I don't know what else to say. Like, there's nothing super in-depth about it, but he had a couple interesting little quip-type lines like that. The daughter assigned some homework to read the little storybooks. That scene was pretty good, the dynamic of they're all trying to tell the story together, and she keeps buzzing them. Like, it's actually pretty well written. I can't... I'm maybe giving a benefit of the doubt because, it's so old, but, these are things that would pass off pretty well even today, right, in the modern sitcom space, which is so saturated anyway. But it's a case where, I don't know, it's not like, oh, look at us, we're just, like a sitcom is a novel thing. This is like genuinely pretty well thought out scenarios. They got the story around the bed that they're telling together, and they're all sort of struggling with it, including the dad, which you think he'd be at least a little better at it. And then you have the whole thing taking advantage of the babysitter. You have the whole music thing. Like there's some good dynamics there. The little bunnies, like that's a good little piece of writing. At the beginning of the episode, he's covering up the bunnies, and then she brings up the mom. The mom made those for me, so he's like, okay, fine, I'll live with them because whatever. And anytime you want something, just invoke the mom. My mom is dead card, right? Pulling the mom card, and so therefore, okay, fine, we'll do whatever you want, even if she's lying, right? Maybe that's not the case. These kids are a little mischievous at times. But assuming whatever, the point being that then later on, she is like, no, you can cover it up if you really want, because I'm trying to apologize and sort of be sweet. So that's a good element of sacrifice that you're making to show, that you feel bad for what happened. And it's sort of like they both took blame, but they're both sort of responsible, right? Like, Danny is responsible in the sense that he's responsible in the sense that he brought the band over and he wasn't really adequately stopping them from eating ice cream and stuff like that, and let them kind of dance around, and also let their hair be sprayed. And so he's responsible for everything besides that he admitted to, besides ordering the pizza. That was actually their doing. But it's not like either of them are blameless, so they both do kind of deserve some criticism from the dad. And then also the daughters, obviously they're eating ice cream, they're having pizza, they're doing whatever. It just doesn't matter. And even the delivery guy's dancing around, dicking around with them too. He used a little flattery to try to, listen to the best rock band in the world, and so therefore, okay, I'll let you stay around if you're gonna fluff me up like that. And they're even trying to use the lyrics and the song itself as comic relief, in the sense that it'd be interesting to see where these sort of careers go. Are they always going to be just staying at home, or are they actually, the series will end by this guy getting a record deal, Danny, and by Joey actually getting, he'll become a world famous clown, right? Just, they'll actually become successful in some way. They're kind of both aspiring, starving artists who suck at what they do, maybe, so they're mooching off, leeching off their friend here. But, so we saw the grandma in the first episode. We've pretty much been stuck with these characters here. Otherwise, though, like, it's just been the same dynamic, the same set. We want to see, where does this guy work, the father, and where do these other two go? Like, we want to see some instances where they actually go outside. The whole show can't just be them in the house all the time, right? But this is maybe one of those antiquated sitcom elements that it's easier just to design the set and stay on the set from the house itself, right? That's what they put the most work into, but you have to at least sometimes go outside of that. Or, that's why the same sitcom locations end up being the same ones over and over. Like, why does in Seinfeld, do they always go to the same place over and over? Monk's Cafe, every single, like, who does that in real life? Sure, you might have a favorite place you go, but do you go there every single day, and do you also, go to the same one every single day? Like, first of all, that's kind of wasteful and expensive that you can afford, buying a coffee there every day and this and that. But that's one element. Like, why would you go there every day, and why would you go to the same place every time? And number two is the fact that, like in How I Met Your Mother, they always go into McLaren's bar. Like, why does it always have to be the same shit? Just because it's easier to do it and you made the set and whatever it is. So, you're not going to go to a real place because then it makes it too hard to film. There'll be too much noise and interference and stuff like that. And so, it'd be interesting to see what sort of other sets do they have. All we've seen is inside the house. It would be kind of and obviously you expect that to be the majority of the time, but it'd be kind of annoying if that's the only thing you see. The whole show is only the house. That's why it's called Full House. But, we've seen the garage, so obviously that must be a set. I mean, I guess a house could technically not be a set. It could just be some rich studio executive's house, whatever, their vacation home that they're just using to film too, right? That can always be true. One of these studio executives involved in the show, the producer or somebody, right, they have this fancy house that they don't use or whatever. It could even be their house, and they just let you shoot there. So it's an actual real house, an actual real garage. So I feel like they've done that in certain shows. Or for, like, certain movies, they'll do that. Like in Eyes Wide Shut, like what is that place that they go to? It's some rich person's house where, like, they're having the party, the ball, the Illuminati thing. So a lot of the time that can be true too. But no, like, are they going to go grocery shopping, go to the supermarket, or what would be interesting is, like, what if you make a show like that where the whole first season is written, in the house, just in case you can't afford the budget of something more, and then once it takes off, now it's season 2, so we've unlocked the ability in our budget because it was successful and proved its worth by, only using the one set that we could afford at the beginning. You got to think of it from the cynical business standpoint, because this is how studios think about it. But then you end up in a situation where, oh, now we can use a supermarket set, or now we can do some other set because we lasted long enough inside of a car. You're not actually driving a car, it's just whatever. I mean, what kind of clown would actually record something while in a car? Wink, wink, says me doing exactly that, reviewing reactions and stuff in a car. But I'm just saying, like, they don't actually drive, they'll just have some sort of green screen in the background, and I don't know how that technology would, I mean, obviously you would have had it then, it just for a TV show, I don't know how budget effective and stuff like that it would be, but that's why you see these things kind of get churned out, whether it be like horror movies or sitcoms and things like this. They're so cheap to make, and you can keep kind of doing the same thing over and over, that it ends up being, that's one thing they should sort of add in sort of listings. If you look up a show like on Wikipedia, there should be more information on the budget. You always see, like, with a movie, it'll say budget and box office, but with TV shows, maybe it's harder to calculate and stuff like that. Yeah, how many times do you see the same goddamn set? Or, like, even, like, once in a while, they'll go to a Chinese restaurant, but it'll always be the same one, so they can reuse that same set over and over. Like, obviously, there'll be different locations in certain episodes, which kind of makes me wonder, like, could they, Doug Heffernan and King of Queens goes to anger management or something, fat management, right, like, to lose weight, so some sort of anonymous group, right, Overeaters Anonymous, but that couldn't be a set, that must be, they actually went to some building and just rented out one room or something, right, like, I don't know how, because, yeah, every episode might have some different location, but it's going to be a lot to handle. So I mean, I keep referencing these other shows, none of which I've seen really in full, but there's a certain emptiness to sitcoms in that sense. Like, it's the same characters over and over, it's the same, scenarios over and over, like, we get it. So it's not bad, but it's pretty much par for the course and a little more ahead of its time than maybe what I would have thought. I'm not a big fan, again, of the child sort of based humor, but we'll see how long we last until we laugh. And again, it's not like, oh, even if I don't enjoy it, I'll try to laugh on purpose. Maybe subconsciously that'll motivate me, like, just to try to get it over with or something. I won't do it like that, right? We'll just watch it. If I watch the whole show, then I watch it, so be it. Yeah, I don't think of a moment really made me close to laughing. In the first episode, I came close a couple times just because of their delivery of how the comic and stuff would sometimes say things. So the names that I don't know, we know that Danny is a musician, I'm pretty sure. We know that Joey is a comedian, I'm pretty sure. We know that Michelle is a little baby, I'm pretty sure. And then we're looking for the dad and the other two girls. Usually they'll say the girls. You might think, how the hell could I possibly miss that? But I'm focused on so many things at once. I'm driving, I'm listening, I'm focusing on the dialogue. So I don't really care too much about that. It doesn't really matter, just for the sake of me saying it. Like, I'll call her the younger girl. The baby is the baby. The younger girl is the younger girl. The older girl is obviously the older girl. Then the father, there's only one father. Then the comic, and then the guy, the musician. Right, the guy wouldn't be exactly very efficient. And again, we haven't met, like, really any other characters. The grandmother and some of these chicks at the, the one girl for that the comic wanted to ask her number because she's like, whatever. She was part of that band and stuff. So this guy's at least got some resources and such, but probably he normally never has a place to play because he doesn't even have a place to live, I guess. And now he's using this nice big house as a studio. Why not use the garage then? I guess because you want to keep watching on the kids sort of still. But yeah, you would think you should be able to use the garage and then the kids can sleep in the house and everything's fine because, it's not going to bother them as much, right? That's the perfect location actually to set up a little studio. I thought he would just like play his guitar in his room or something and there'd be a similar set of jokes related to the, him trying to play music that way. Why not take advantage of this big empty house, even if you're upset, like, oh, I can't go out and pursue my music career, but you can still pursue it at home by trying to better yourself and practice that way.